Okay, so I thought we would talk about the epic Elon Musk crash out that is currently ongoing. This is a legendary crash out. I don't think I've ever seen anything quite like this rug pull, this knife in the back, outright betrayal of the people who have been supporting him. And it's amazing to watch. I mean, the crash out. If you haven't been on Twitter for the past 2 days, and I understand some people are not terminally online, like some of us, and may not be aware of what's happening. Basically, on Christmas, Elon Musk decided to start pushing for more H-1B visas. And as you know, this is a big issue, like the entire election, the past several elections have mainly been about the issue of immigration. Okay. So Elon has just started basically outright banning right wing accounts who disagree with him. He's announced new algorithmic censorship features that basically are just bringing back blue check censorship. These are now controlled by his favorite, quote, credible accounts, all while referring to the American people as dumb, retarded, gaslighting them by calling them racist if they oppose what he is pushing, which he stands to benefit from economically with his companies. And this is all while he has just raised 6 billion from several companies, one of them being BlackRock. So this is not surprising to me, and I'm sure there are many people who are not surprised by this, that, kind of saw this coming. But I want to go over this because I think it's very important that if you're not aware that this is happening, that you be aware that you don't just listen to what people say and take what they say at face value, especially the so-called world's richest man, right? No, these people need to be told the truth to their faces. And it's clear to me that he is surrounded by a bunch of yes men. He is constantly has these basically they're paid ball washers who spend their time literally amplifying everything he says, agreeing with everything he says. They shill for him. They're constantly, making excuses for him, and he likes that. That makes him comfortable, but he's obviously not used to receiving pushback and having to really articulate his positions. You're just supposed to know, what he's thinking, I guess, or you're just supposed to agree with him because he purchased Twitter. And, these same people will say, oh, he's a hero. He saved free speech by buying Twitter and turning it into X. And it's like, okay, how did he save free speech, though, when he is now censoring his critics? That is not politically neutral, which is what he claimed the platform was going to be back in 2022. So, no, like, we're going to talk about this. And I don't care if I lose my Twitter account because I am very vocally opposing his nonsense. Somebody has to tell this man the truth to his face, because you don't do him any favors or anybody else any favors when you just make excuses for these people. No, it's not happening. So here's how it went down. Elon Musk spent Christmas shilling for mass immigration from India, denigrating Americans as too retarded to work in tech, then crying and censoring people for pushing back against him. On Christmas Day, Musk suggests that America needs to, quote, double the number of, quote, high skilled immigrants we are bringing in through H-1B visas. Now, I the thing is that that's not who's coming in here on these H-1B visas. These are scams, and they're largely done by companies who want to basically bring in indentured servants that they get to dangle green cards over their head, because they will work for less money and they'll work 80 hours a week in ways that, like, the American people can't afford to do and won't do. They just don't want to pay people a living wage, and they don't want them to have a fair work-life balance, which is what we deserve as Americans. It's amazing. So this is how it begins, right? This account, Amjad Masad, says, genuinely curious. are there actual instances where qualified native-born Americans couldn't get jobs in tech because foreigners took all of them? I'd be surprised if it's true, because at any given point there are hundreds of thousands of unfilled jobs in tech. And so Elon Musk responds to that. This is what set it off, saying, there is a permanent shortage of excellent engineering talent. It is the fundamental limiting factor in Silicon Valley. And as you guys know, via things like affirmative action, DEI, there's been a lot of discrimination against people who have these degrees but just can't get jobs, and other people who are not Americans are getting hired over them in favor of them, because they are going to work for less money, and you can hold a green card over their head and basically treat them worse. So that's what's actually happening. Remarkably, he got ratioed on his own site by a smaller user who said that their son, who graduated with honors with electrical and computer engineering degrees in 2023, quote, cannot get an interview, let alone a job, unquote, and, quote, any white male he knew in college can't get jobs either. So that's the thing. They are also, these big tech companies have been laying people off, and now they have the audacity to claim that there's some worker shortage. Why did you lay off thousands of people? Hello? So he's saying we need more like double that number yesterday. The number of people who are super talented engineers and super motivated in the USA is far too low. Think of it like a pro sports team. If you want your team to win the championship, you need to recruit top talent wherever they may be. That enables the whole team, quote unquote, to win. What is the team if the players can just be removed and discarded at will and replaced with somebody else? Who's winning here? Who are the actual... America is not an idea. It is a people. It's a country and a people. It's not some sports team, and it's not some corporate, company. This is globalism. That's what he's advocating for here. And so he gets ratioed by this small account that had like 300 followers. My son graduated with honors. With electrical and computer engineering degrees, he cannot get an interview, let alone a job. And by the way, many of these HR departments are literally run by these H-1B people. Amid the tremendous pushback Musk was facing from the right, his Doge partner Vivic Ramaswamy came to his defense with a screed attacking Americans as a bunch of mediocre dullards raised on 90s sitcoms who can't hold a candle to his fellow brilliant Indians. This is what he goes, it's such a bizarre tirade. Essentially, he is resentful and angry of the fact that when he was in school, he was considered a nerd and he wasn't able to date like the cheerleaders. So he didn't feel valued. It's nonsensical. The reason top tech companies often hire foreign-born first-generation engineers over Native Americans isn't because of an innate American IQ deficit. He says a key part of it comes down to the C word, culture. Our American culture has venerated mediocrity over excellence for way too long. The people coming over on H-1Bs, though, are not excellent by any stretch of the imagination. They're being used to fill jobs, literally like digital janitor jobs and 7-Eleven store clerks. I mean, come on, get real. He says, a culture that celebrates the prom queen over the math Olympiad champ or the jock over the valedictorian will not produce the best engineers. Sure thing, bud. Sure. Vivic shares with us painful memories of his being cheated out of his rightful status as the most popular boy in high school in Ohio. Steve Saylor commented, America needs a culture where the spelling bee champ gets the hot blonde girls. That's essentially what his entire commentary boils down to. So he got, rightfully pushback on this. Not being cute, this is the darkest vision for America I've ever read. No sleepovers, no Saturday morning cartoons, no joy. Nothing to look forward to but endless grinding competition. Life itself sacrificed in its place, quote-unquote, success. Yes, exactly. One of the most noteworthy exchanges was Elon Musk defending one of his ex-employees who has gone on a racist tirade. Elon Musk defends ex-engineer Cash, Kache, after he went on a racist tirade against white Americans. And you can go read these tweets. They're still up. They're absolutely insane. Um, we're not going to read it all, but it's just ridiculous. And just look at it. This is what it actually looks like. This is what your average ex-engineer looks like. It looks like a sex pest. He says, oh, he is a troll, but went a little over the top the past few days when he responding to Bella saying one of your engineers is a racist. Oh no, he's just a troll, so it's okay for him to do this, but when other people do it, oh, they're gonna get purged from the platform. In another noteworthy exchange, he agreed with some anonymous Israel First influencer that goes by the name Autism Capital, saying Americans are, quote, too retarded to be hired by big tech firms. This is, he literally believes that. I mean, that's what it says right here. And that the American right is like, oh, you know, you need to train us, and the big tech people are saying you guys are too retarded, and they're saying you can't out-train being retarded. And Elon Musk agrees with that Americans are retarded and can't be trained to be engineers. He says this pretty much sums it up. It was eye-opening. No, what happened is your narcissism and your ego was bruised because people disagreed with you for the first time. You know, most people let his nonsense slide for whatever reason because they don't want to upset the owner of the platform. But he pulled this crap and it was wildly unpopular. He got pushback and now he doubles down. Instead of admitting that he was wrong, he chooses to double down and agree that the American people are retarded. And you see this saying not found because he's also started deleting these tweets. That's what he's doing now. Musk called his critics subtards, only to get ratioed by a random Apu account. Yes, he says, my tolerance for subtards is limited. And the account says, my tolerance for your willful ignorance is extremely limited. And that is the truth. While this is exploding, critics of Elon Musk noticed that their blue check verification badges started being removed. There were several, prominent accounts, Raw Alerts being one of them. They have quite a number of followers. Gavin Wax, Laura Loomer, Owen Schroyer, all of these people who were publicly pushing back against Elon, they lose their blue checks. Some complained that they lost their subscribers, which you can only get through having a large verified paid blue check account. On Thursday night, Musk announces he will be instituting what amounts to a new shadowban system in which accounts that are blocked by, quote, more credible verified subscriber accounts will have their reach decline significantly, quote unquote. This is Elon's idea. He puts this out on December 26th, and now there are people today trying to gaslight us into thinking that, oh, there's no censorship coming. There's no new censorship. He's not changing anything. This is how Twitter always was. No, it isn't. This is literally bringing back shadow banning. It's disgusting. So Oren rightly calls this out, saying this is an interesting way to say old-style blue-check censorship is coming. And he started getting pushback against this. So then he goes, that said, any accounts found to be engaged in coordinated attacks to spam target accounts with mutes and blocks will find themselves correctly categorized as spam. I don't believe that for a second. And how would you even go about proving it? People plan this stuff and they do this stuff and organize on other platforms like Discord, like Telegram, maybe even in text messages. How would you know if they coordinated something like this? And by the way, this is like the tactic of the mainstream media. They find a target they don't like, they isolate them, they publish a bunch of hit pieces about them, they get a bunch of their friends to amplify that, their fellow media clowns, and then they get that person canceled and get their account, removed, they get debanked. So he's literally pushing for cancel culture after sitting here gaslighting everybody about the, quote, woke mind virus for the past 2 years. It is really a remarkable meltdown, and it shows us that he doesn't care about principles at all. He cares about his narcissism and himself. Fee says, Elon tanking all his goodwill overnight was not foreseen. It was by some of us who have never fallen for his nonsense. Though few people saw this coming, such a clash was inevitable, as both Elon and even Trump himself have both repeatedly called for more high-skilled immigration. Musk shared this tweet from Malaysian influencer Ian Miles Chong, professional ball washer, reposting Trump's promise to all the tech bros that he would support stapling green cards to diplomas. It's just absolute insanity. Trump's team walked back those comments, but Trump himself repeated them just a few weeks later. The end result of these policies, as everyone is pointing out, is diploma mills churning out fake degrees to facilitate unlimited immigration. And that's a very good point. Elon is now calling critics of his policies contemptible fools who must be removed from the Republican Party root and stem. So he's now calling literally for Stalinist purges of a party he just joined 5 minutes ago. Musk became a Republican 2 years ago and originally supported Ron DeSantis over President Trump. Neera Tanden, who Musk's post was addressing, is a lifelong Democrat activist who worked under Clinton, Obama, and Biden. We're basically as far away from an election as you can get, yet Musk thinks the feelings of Tanden should be setting GOP policy. Yeah, this Democrat activist, lifelong Democrat activist. It's all very interesting. So in response to Vivic's commentary here about not basically getting the girls when he was in high school, he gets a reply. The length and sincerity of this post reveals more than anything how Vivic sees himself and his place in America. He's had to reason with this all his life, and his opinion on H-1B boils down to ethnic and cultural conclusions born out of personal jealousy. Vivic calling American culture inferior to foreign ones is fascinating. I mean, after all, this culture is the one that allowed him to scam his American investors and become insanely rich after claiming he had the cure for Alzheimer's. Maybe that's why him and Elon want to deregulate the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, because regulations are in place to prevent these vultures from scamming Americans. Let's do a big think. There is no real political ideology among decayed ruling elites. Political debate and ideological constructs for these elites are just so much absurdist theater, a cynical species of public spectacle and mass entertainment. Chris Hedges, Wages of Rebellion. And indeed, I tend to agree. So here he is talking about calling for his Stalinist purge. Elon is now calling critics contemptible fools and calling for the Stalinist purge of the party because his ego was bruised, because his fifis were hurt. Apex says, the last few days have been quite intense. I don't think continued dunking is constructive on my part, so instead I'll toss my hat into the ring and provide a policy proposal. Clearly, our current slate of visas are not doing the job properly. They're being abused and misused, and this has generated a great amount of anger, justified in my opinion. Yes, it undercuts wages for the working class. The problem isn't just illegal immigration, very obviously, so what are we to do? I cannot claim to be knowledgeable on every single kind of visa, and I'm sure I'll miss some nuances, but to put my money where my mouth is, I've decided to craft a proposal that I'm sure will upset absolutely nobody and lead to productive conversation. H-1Bs. Properly understood, H-1B is meant to allow for temporary workers to fill an acute shortage of skilled labor. Clearly, this is not how it is being used today. Absolutely not. I mean, you can see here, they're just bringing in indentured servants. First, we need some kind of explicit and objective test for the, quote, shortage that cannot be gamed by companies. We have real shortages of doctors, not programmers. Second, we need a way to objectively test the capability of visa candidates. Yes, I agree. Third, as I noted in the thread, this should be a last resort for companies. There should be hefty expenses associated with using the H-1Bs. Fourth, H-1Bs should not be eligible for green cards and must leave after 5 years. Yes, I think that that's reasonable. Companies should have a limit on H-1Bs they use both in total numbers and as a percentage of their workforce. I believe these principles, along with a general reduction in the size of the program itself, would resolve most issues with this particular visa, and I absolutely agree. The H-1B would no longer be a source of cheap labor, but a stopgap while we train more doctors or engineers capable of working in a semiconductor lab. These are skills the workforce doesn't currently have, but can and should have in 5 to 10 years. It could literally be that simple. When it comes to areas where there's very obviously isn't a shortage, like in software, there's still a benefit of attracting the best and brightest here. The 0-1 is relevant. The reforms here need to be making sure that they aren't gameable, pay to publish journals, etc. You know how these scams work. Finally, foreign student visas are also tricky. My general opinion is most universities in the US, it is a waste of time, and 80 to 90% of current uni students shouldn't be there in the first place. I tend to agree with that. At the same time, international fellowships have been important. I think limiting spots to fellowships for truly exceptional students is fine. They would be eligible for 0-1 visa. Again, thinking sizing here is key. As I've noted, I don't think people are upset about exceptional Swedish or Czech students taking a few spots. The key with international student visas is the OPT program, which is abused for cheap labor, just like H-1B. Harder to fix than the H-1B, so I would propose just abolishing it outright. The other set of visas I would note here are marriage visas. You should only be able to get a green card through marriage by marrying a U.S. citizen, not marrying a current green card holder. And then family reunification post-marriage should be heavily limited. Finally, birthright citizenship needs to be revoked, and I would argue it may even be useful outlawing dual citizenship as well. If you are American, you are American and nothing else. I think a final point is net migration to the US needs to come down significantly. It doesn't need to be, and arguably should not be, zero, but it does need to be lower and come from countries that are much closer to us culturally. Actually, two final points to elaborate on. Skin in the game remains my compass with regards to policy. Immigration should thus be a local issue, not a national one. The right to vote should be treated far more dearly than it is currently. I kind of agree with this, and I think that that's like a reasonable position that he easily could have articulated, but he chose not to. So he chooses to agree that this is the take, actually. If you just disagree with him, you're a subtard, whatever that means. This is the post Elon says pretty much sums it up. According to him, the people who built the greatest nation on earth are retarded. So retarded, it is useless to train them and better to just replace them. Vivic made the same point yesterday himself. Yes, and that's why they are rightfully receiving pushback. And so this is also what's happening, right? He's deleting tweets. So Elon deleted this tweet. This is a tweet that he may or may not have deleted. I mean, he claims it's not a real tweet, but even if that's true, people share fake tweets all the time and they don't get censored for it. So he's literally like spurging about this. He says, "This is a lie. Did you make this lie?" He says, "I found it elsewhere. Is it fake? Where did you find this lie?" He says, "It was posted on Reddit. My mistake. I didn't realize it was forged." And he replies and says, "Liar," which is just absolutely crazy. But is he even writing these? Has he like outsourced the writing of his tweets to somebody else? Where did you find this lie? Do you make this lie? Do you make this lie? And then, of course, this is what this looks like now. The account was suspended. Even if this original tweet isn't real, that's basically what he was arguing, though. That's sort of what his argument amounted to. So he's, completely unhinged and personally suspending people who post fake tweets from him, something that happens thousands of times a day, and other people aren't getting their accounts taken over for it. They usually just get like a community note, and that should work fine. But this is basically, his ego is bruised, so if you made him look bad, if you say, oh, you put out a fake tweet, oh, you're gonna lose your account if it's directed at him. So here's a bunch of accounts that have already been suspended. The short lived era of Elon Musk's Twitter being a semi free speech platform came to an end on Friday after Musk started banning right wing critics of his who vocally opposed his plan to radically expand immigration. And I thought this was important to bring to everybody's attention. This is from Alex Vala. I can't say your last name, sorry. This is from a gentleman named Alex. He says, years ago, I witnessed blatant racism against a white male intern at LinkedIn. That cost him his job offer. I was too afraid to talk about it then, but it is a story I need to finally get off my chest. And this is really, so the pushback that Musk is getting and the other Silicon Valley people is because of stuff like this. This is just one of many stories. There are many other people who are experiencing this, and they're basically just saying that their experiences aren't valid and don't matter, or that they're somehow on the fringes, and it's nonsense. The intern was a Harvard CS student. He was assigned a hiring manager, and I was his summer mentor. All summer, he consistently showed up and performed everything that was asked for him and then some. So this is somebody who's going above and beyond. They're, being a team player and all this other nonsense. The hiring manager was from the Bay Area, and over drinks once, he had told me about some of his resentment for white guys. He'd worked in hospitality industry in high school and experienced some bad racism over the years. I genuinely felt bad when I heard his story. Throughout the summer internship, that hiring manager made a series of comments, racist comments toward the intern, intentionally calling him Chad instead of his real name, would refer to him as typical privileged white dude, etc. Comments would get even worse when we were all out drinking after work. At the conclusion of the internship, the hiring manager told me he was not in support of a return offer for the intern. I was honestly shocked since the intern clearly performed well enough for the offer. I took it to my director and pleaded his case. My director was a really great guy, and I think deep down he felt this was probably not the right decision. Being a good manager, he ultimately trusted the judgment of his direct report, which I can respect, but I knew something very wrong had happened. The intern also knew he'd been blatantly discriminated against, so he filed a report to HR during his exit interview. To LinkedIn's HR credit, they took the report seriously. We were all asked to give one-on-one interviews with HR. Everyone on the team was uncomfortable with the interviews because we knew it could open up Pandora's box. Our team already had a reputation for having a strong drinking culture after work. None of us wanted to bring more attention to it. When it was finally my day to interview with HR, I honestly felt sick to my stomach. I knew that I had witnessed blatant discrimination, but didn't want to deal with the blowback that would come with supporting the intern's case. I felt I would be discriminated against also and lose my promotion. I also didn't want anyone else on my team to get in trouble, including my director or even hiring manager. That might sound crazy, but I genuinely couldn't stomach being the reason some guy lost his job and couldn't support his family. I knew the intern was likely still not getting an offer, and I wanted the fallout to end. So when my turn came to talk to HR, I took the coward move and played dumb. Unbelievable. I denied any foul play and instead just tried to highlight that I personally thought the intern was good enough to receive the offer. By the time the call was over, I felt ashamed but relieved. I had already talked to other members on my team and knew none of them were going to talk, so it was no surprise when the investigation concluded a week later. All this guy received was a slap on the wrist from HR and everybody moved on. What really upset me, though, is when I had a conversation with the hiring manager about it in private. Our conversations, he immediately started playing the victim and said something along the lines of, "Do you know how bad it would look if I went to the press and said a white male was trying to get me fired?" I was honestly floored when he told me that and immediately regretted not telling the truth. While everyone, including the intern, all eventually moved on, I've lived with the guilt from this story for years. I should have had this guy's back and done the right thing, but I was so terrified of the woke environment I worked in. This was big tech, San Francisco in 2020. I haven't told a lot of people this, but this experience was one of the driving forces for me leaving big tech. I saw the writing on the wall and wasn't going to leave my fate up to others I knew would eventually discriminate against me. I chose to start my own companies and bet on myself because the real market doesn't discriminate the same way corporate HR in the hiring market does. Since 2021, only 6% of new jobs have gone to white males. This is despite white males making up 31% of the population. Most people will be shocked by this because it's such a narrative violation. But I think the truth is that there are literally tens, if not hundreds of thousands of similar stories like this happening out there. You'll never hear about it, though, because we've been indoctrinated to believe our concerns are never valid. We are afraid of the blowback that comes with trying to stand up for yourself as a white man in America. You immediately get labeled racist. There are a few exceptions. I'm not a victim, blah, 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 blah. So you get the story, basically. This is just a routine thing that happens. People are being routinely discriminated against to the point where only 6% of new jobs are going to white people. And then Elon Musk has the audacity to call these people, retards and subtards. It's truly remarkable to see. America as a whole, our Americans as a whole are now realizing what it's like to be treated as the South has been treated for a century and a half. Your heritage, culture, and sovereignty mean nothing. You are stupid and backward and lazy, never mind any history which suggests otherwise, that's actively being erased and forgotten, and if you say any different, you're just proving their point. You have to be lorded over by foreigners for your own good. And because you're so inept and lazy, we need to industrialize your economy to the point where nothing good about family and country and land matters anymore. You are an economic zone, lab rats for hustlers, and an international embarrassment deserving nothing more than the most thorough exploitation. And if nothing is done, Americans will become reconstructed and re-educated beyond recognition, relegated to second-class citizens in their own land, and taught to hate the forefathers who fought for them. Yes, indeed, I tend to agree with this. This is just a thread about the infighting and what has been going on. We've covered most of this, so I don't think we need to go over it, but I will put this in the links here. You can read that yourself. This was actually hilarious. Cernovich literally tried to make the argument that Elon Musk is the monarch of X and that you should interact with respect. No, he's just the CEO of the company. He is not a monarch, and what he's really trying to say is that you shouldn't criticize him or publicly disagree with him on his own platform, and I resoundingly reject that idea. No. This is also disturbing. I don't know if this is true, but this is his mother, Elon's mother. She looks a little creepy to me. I mean, maybe it's possible that he had a very difficult childhood. I would definitely believe that. And here he is doubling down again. America rose to greatness because it was a meritocracy more than anywhere else on earth. I will fight to my last drop of blood to ensure it remains the land of freedom and opportunity. What freedom? What opportunity? What meritocracy? That's literally doesn't exist. Elon retaliating against everyone that went against him in a Twitter space. Oh yes, when he was LARPing as Adrian Dittman, like one of the alts that he uses, allegedly. I mean, there are some people who say that it wasn't him, but it certainly sounded a lot like him. That he held this Twitter space, and basically the people who pushed back on him in that Twitter space have disappeared. Very, very odd, but apparently these accounts aren't connected. So we have another potential compromise here. Litigate H-1B abusers, investigate big tech for anti-white discrimination, camouflaged as DEI, increase 0-1 visa rate of admission, make new similar visa that is meritocratic. But they all claim to be that, though, and they were all abused. Do you not understand the problem? So Elon then announced he was going to go to war with people. Like literally, he said, F yourself in the face. I will go to war on this issue, the likes of which you cannot possibly comprehend. He's literally having a full-blown meltdown. War, quote unquote. War means entirely different things to those of us who've experienced it. And this man, very poor choice of words, heed advice and take a minute in the corner before you make unrecoverable statements, unless you're rightfully implying that immigration is an instrument of war. Exactly. I mean, that sounds exactly like what he's saying. And Kelly says the libertarian tech bros don't want H-1B workers to build America. They want foreign workers from Asia in control of American infrastructure because that is what the Eurasianists want. It is a communist takeover of America from within and without an obvious, kinetic war. So it's a quiet war, basically. Even Newsmax, I believe, or whoever this outlet is, I don't know who this is. Another big tech companies have the largest market caps in the world. If there's really an issue attracting talent, perhaps they should offer better pay and incentives. This is the true free market solution. Yeah, good luck getting that to happen. And then, of course, he deleted this, and Cassandra is just pointing that out, that it is hilarious. People still defending the billionaires that see you as, basically idiots and subtards. As can be noted by the extreme position on the pro-H-1B side of the discussion, they view this debate as a zero-sum contest. The position of Elon Musk and the Silicon Valley tech group is that if the H-1B process is stopped, American technological advancement will immediately cease to exist. When it is pointed out that Silicon Valley discriminates against white Americans with engineering degrees or skills, Silicon Valley shouts back the same arguments as the DEI promoters Musk claims to abhor. Musk and the tech group immediately used the Alinsky tactic of isolate, ridicule, marginalize against anyone who speaks forcefully against their interest. The Musk allies and influencers then pile on. It is something remarkable to watch happen. Yes, the professional ball washers. As I watch the debate unfold, I find myself finally realizing why all the Silicon Valley tech people were such staunch Democrats. Their worldview does not, number one, seem to comprehend American economic nationalism as a priority. Two, does not seem to appreciate the importance of true liberty in the creation of the remarkable outcomes of American exceptionalism. And three, they appear to be inside a bubble of self-interest, unattached and unaffected by the economic issues that have seriously harmed Americans. In essence, the Silicon Valley network represented by Elon Musk, Peter Thiel et al. Does not connect in the same way to the important priorities of middle America. They are technocrats. Absolutely, and always have been. Always have been. So this is Eric Raymond saying today's big beef is between tech success maximizers like Elon and nationalists who think that the U.S. job market is being flooded by low-skill immigrants because employers don't want to pay competitive wages to Americans. John Carter says, this is exactly on point. I will amplify with my own experience. Until a few years ago, I was working as a mid-career research scientist. I won't tell you what field. Within my collaboration, I was known for being extremely productive. I've seen jaws drop when I show colleagues my publication list. Then it came time to start applying for junior professor positions. Got a few interviews, but doors kept getting slammed in my face. And it's a very opaque process, of course. They never tell you why. In one case, however, I had the dean, a portly Hispanic woman, tell me 2 minutes into the interview that women in STEM are very important to me, and ultimately heard informally from one of the professors at the department that I hadn't been hired because of interference from the dean, despite all of the professors on the committee wanting me, and that instead they'd hired no one. That was in the US. Meanwhile, in Canada, where open discrimination against white men is not only legally allowed but federally mandated, the federal government rolled out a research chair program that was only available to applicants who were not white men, while telling universities that if their faculties weren't diversifying overall, they would not qualify for research chairs. After that, I heard from 2 different deans at 2 schools that there was an unofficial moratorium on hiring white males. Sure enough, every subsequent new hire I saw was a non. At the same time, diversity statements became mandatory for application packages basically everywhere. These require the applicant to wax poetic about how much they love DEI, how much they will do to advance it, and how it is the ultimate center of meaning in their lives. It's a bit much to demand guys write about how they adore a system that discriminates against them. I have my pride. So if a diversity statement was required, I did not apply. Whoops, there go 90% of available positions. Just because a school doesn't have an explicit policy, doesn't require statements, etc., means little. One European university I applied to provided detailed feedback, not just on my application, but those of other applicants due to some kind of transparency policy. This was very informative. Not only was the female referee noticeably biased towards women, she gave a 1 out of 5 rating to every teaching statement that didn't mention diversity. No mention of diversity was literally the only comment she made on most of the teaching statements. Needless to say, as this situation continued, I became rather discouraged. My research activity slowed and then basically stopped. What is the point? I killed myself for a decade for what? This isn't a sob story. I'm not fishing for sympathy here. In the meantime, I started writing, building an audience, and for now, I'm supporting myself reasonably well as an essayist with added bonus that I can work while traveling and living where I want. Honestly, I've always wanted to be a writer, so it's working out reasonably well for me. But if it wasn't for DEI, it's very likely I'd still be in the field happily doing scientific research, supervising students, and so on. Instead, whatever resources were used to train me got poured down the drain as far as the system is concerned. And this is just, again, one of many stories that people have that we're seeing on here. And just this fact alone, this is not, you can't deny this stuff. Tech bros before the election and then after. So true. So true. 6 in 10 Americans say no more H-1B visas. According to new Rasmussen polling, 72% of Republicans and 47% of Democrats says the U.S. has enough domestic talent to fill white-collar jobs without importing more people. So, again, Elon is pretending like the fringes of the far left and far right disagree with him. They're literally trying to say it's only 10% of people on the fringes who disagree. This is not true. It's actually most Americans either side of the political aisle, right? And then there's a little video here about who this guy really is, newsflash, not a great one. And I thought I would end by showing this. Apparently Steve Bannon is referring to Musk's meltdown as him being a toddler. Someone please notify Child Protective Services needs to do a wellness check on this toddler. If that's true, that's what he posted on Getter. That is actually hilarious. Remember, he made this post too. He posted this picture on Christmas and called himself Ozempic Santa. Yes, and this is basically what happened. To just break it down into one meme, this is the entire meltdown that occurred. Rather than disputing people's arguments or engaging with their ideas, he's shouting people down as racists and retards. It's pretty ridiculous. And now we can see, accounts just disappearing if you disagree with him. So, yeah, epic, legendary Crashout. Never seen anything quite like it. It was truly amazing to watch. And the fact that it's still ongoing is even more funny. He is continuing to double and triple down. And watching all the glazers out there who are getting paid for being on his platform, it just is truly disgusting. And then they call themselves independent media. Elon gasses them up saying, "You're the news now." No, the press is, by its nature, skeptical of power and adversarial. You're not gonna, the real journalism isn't being a paid glazer of a billionaire. That's propaganda. That's PR that you're having people do that are monetized on your platform and receive a financial incentive for doing so. I do not have a monetized X account. I will never have a monetized account there. You will never be subscribing to my X account because I do not support this nonsense. I am on there for the sole purpose of sharing my work, and let's not forget that platform, Elon Musk's platform, tried to censor my documentary Twitter account. They literally claimed I violated a terms of service, which never happened. They took away the documentary account. I had to use my personal account and, get a bunch of bigger name people to, amplify that in order to get the documentary account restored. They were literally trying to preemptively censor my film. And as far as I'm concerned, that's what happened. And, we're lucky that we got it back, but it shouldn't have happened in the first place. Be very weary of the X platform of Elon Musk. This man is not your friend. He's not a good guy. He is about himself primarily. And we've seen, you learn about somebody's character when they're under pressure, right? Like, we learned that Elon doesn't have any principles at all. All he cares about is quote unquote winning, whatever that means. So I'm interested to know what you guys think of this. Were you surprised by this epic crash out, or were you expecting this? All right, guys, have a good day.